Hi everybody, Brent Jones, New Home Source Realty. How are you? Hope all is going well. I actually decided to pull over and do a quick little Facebook Live. I'm actually in the parking lot of North Park Mall, which, if you're familiar with Dallas, North Park Mall was one of the first major malls in the country. It was built in the 1960s, and it's still, all these years later, whatever that is, 50 or 60 years later, it's still one of the best malls in the country. But anyway, that's not the reason for my Facebook Live. I just thought I would throw that in. Let's talk about what the perfect offer would look like. So if you're a buyer, what would the perfect offer that you could possibly submit, what would that look like? And if you're a seller selling your house, what would be the perfect offer that you could receive? What would those look like? What would they consist of? Let's chat about that real quick. First, let's do the business side of this. Click notifications, follow me, like this video, and leave a comment. So whether you're a buyer or a seller, what would be the components of the perfect offer in this ridiculous market that we're in? Let's talk about that. And I'm just going to paint a picture of what the perfect offer would be. So for openers, cash. Cash is king. Cash would be great. So getting or submitting a cash offer and above asking price, maybe 105% above asking price. Your realtor could tell you what's been going on in the last 90 days in this subdivision. What have properties been selling for? Are they selling above asking price? And if so, what percent? 103, 104, 105? What percent above asking price have properties been selling? So we're at cash. We're above asking price cash. Closing fast. What does closing fast mean? Closing in 2 weeks? Closing in 10 days? Closing fast because it's cash and you would have the ability to close fast. No option period. What does that mean? Well, the state of Texas gives buyers the ability, if they choose to take advantage of it, to have an option period. So you submit an offer, you have an executed contract. Built into that offer is going to be an option period. The buyer would pay the seller $100, $200, $300 for the right to have an option period, and that option period length is negotiable. It could be 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. In this market, it would need to be as short as possible, but there are offers out there where the buyer is not even asking for an option period. So they submit an offer. If the seller accepts it, bam, you go from active to pending. You're full speed ahead towards closing. So not even an option period. What would a buyer typically use that option period for? Typically, you would use it to have the property inspected, read the inspection report, and come back to the seller and request repairs. But again, we're painting the scenario, we're painting the perfect offer. So in this perfect offer, there would be no option period. Waive the appraisal. So if you're paying cash, there wouldn't be an appraisal anyway, but if they were going to go get a loan, conventional, FHA, VA, they could waive the appraisal, which means that, let me reword that. Waive the right to terminate based on the appraisal. There's going to be an appraisal if you're going to get a mortgage. There's going to be an appraisal. But if the buyer is overpaying for the house, then we start having some appraisal issues, right? Wow, okay, well, this is wonderful. I'm going to make, 105% instead of 100%, but is the property going to appraise? The buyer could waive their right to terminate the contract if it doesn't appraise. And the buyer would say that I will go ahead and bring whatever, if there is an appraisal shortage, I will bring that shortage to closing. So that's another great thing that we could use as far as building this perfect offer. Obviously, the buyer would be asking for nothing. Not asking the seller to pay for title policy, not asking for a home warranty. Of course, the days of buyers asking sellers to pay part of their closing costs, that's been gone for many, many years. But buyer would be asking for absolutely nothing. Here's one of the final things. A leaseback. A seller leaseback, which means you would close on the property, but the seller gets to stay in the house for X number of days or even weeks, and that seller leaseback would be free. So we're going to close quickly, but maybe the seller doesn't even know where they're going to move yet, or maybe wherever the seller is going to move, that property is not ready yet. The buyer would give or could give the seller a free seller leaseback to let them stay in the house for weeks. It could be anything. So again, let's paint the perfect offer scenario. So if you were a buyer, what would be the perfect offer for you to submit? And if you are a seller, what would be the perfect dream offer that you could get? Now, I say, so you want to date a blonde with blue eyes. Okay, well, guess what? This would be a blonde with blue eyes. This would be a supermodel perfect offer. And the offer would be cash, offering above asking price, closing fast, which would mean in a couple of weeks, no option period. So once the offer is accepted, there is no option period. You go straight from active straight to pending. You're full speed ahead towards closing. Waive the right to terminate based on the appraisal. Now, again, if it's cash, there is no appraisal. But if the buyer is going to go secure a mortgage, there's going to be an appraisal. But the buyer would waive his or her right to terminate the contract based on the appraisal, and would be willing to bring whatever shortage there might be to closing. Asking, of course, for absolutely nothing, and giving the seller time to get out of the house. A couple of weeks. I've actually heard some offers where the buyer's letting the seller stay for a couple of months. That actually is getting kind of long, and there's actually some kind of liability issues involved in that as well. I'm getting messages while we're doing this. So anyway, the perfect offer. Now, if you're a buyer, you may not be able to do all that, so don't feel bad. I'm just painting the picture of what the perfect offer would be. If you have the ways and means of being able to do that, more power to you. Now, most people don't have the ways and means and the ability to be able to do that, but that would be the absolute ultimate blonde with blue eyes, perfect offer that you could possibly submit. And if you were a seller, that would be the ultimate offer that you could possibly expect. And I had a seller. We got an offer very similar to that. And I told him, I said, you know what? We ought to just shut this thing down. It's not going to get any better than this. I know you hate being displaced out of your house. I know you hate 20 and 30 strangers a day walking through your house. This is the perfect offer. My recommendation would be accept this, let's shut it down, and let's move full speed ahead towards closing. So I hope this helps. Anything I can do, feel free to reach out to me. Brent Jones, New Home Source Realty. My phone number, 214-649-4528. 214-649-4528. Anything I can do to be of help to you as a buyer or a seller, don't hesitate to call upon me. Have a great day. Bye-bye.